Alrighty, I decided to dig a Tesla coil out of the closet here and play with it over the next couple days to see what I can get out of this. Now, without going into a boatload of details, this is kind of a really special coil to me because um, I built this for a specific, I guess you could say, purpose. And the purpose kind of fell through on me. So I ended up with this coil in my possession, let's just say it that way. And it doesn't really suit my needs, I think might be a good choice of words. So what I wanted to try to do is make some modifications to this where maybe I can utilize it. So there was a whole entourage of electronics underneath this, and I took that off and I put a 3.5 kV transformer on here, which runs about 30 watts. And I guess before I go on any further, I should say, just for the record, I am by no means a master of Tesla coils. This is the second coil that I've ever built. The first one being probably in the early 90s, which was a 750 watt coil. So this is significantly smaller. Now, what's funny about this coil is this. Kind of has a little bit of a story to it. And that is, this was built at the, I guess you could say, the onset of the pandemic. And I did this kind of as a project, a keep you busy kind of project, I guess you could say. So I used a bunch of materials, a bunch of different materials, and to really put it just as plainly as I can, I basically rummaged everything that I possibly could to use for this coil. So it consists of a lot of different kinds of materials. Partly entertainment stand, partly Sansui speaker, partly electrical panel, and the list goes on and on. Now back to the humorous part, and that should pretty much speak for itself. I said that this was built at the onset of the pandemic. So I stamped it, the covi-coil, and put my trademark there. So I labeled it as a model 2020. It's getting harder and harder to laugh about this every day. When I first did this, it was hilarious, but now it's actually kind of dying down. So it's the model 2020 covi-coil. It's 1,395 turns of number 28, which occupies pretty much 21 inches of PVC pipe. The inherent resonance of the secondary is 530 kilohertz. So the primary is a bunch of number 17 and number 18 heavy build. It was originally designed for a 680 cap, and it's got about 6.5 trillion coats of varnish on it at 2300 volts per mil. So I was really grasping for materials to use on this. So I didn't have strain reliefs, I didn't have cable clamps and all that stuff, so I just had to improvise. But luckily I had fuse holders. So you can see what I kind of did. Just did what I had to do. Now the spiral is probably, I'm guessing 17 or 18 turns. It used to be connected in series with a cylindrical, but I just broke the connection and just have the cylindrical on right now. It is wound on a base port to a Sansui speaker, probably like an SP2000, I think. So looking at the underside, you can see that the spiral sets up about 1.5 inches from the bottom of the secondary. There's two pieces of ABS that were laminated here together under pressure to cap off the bottom here to make a support for the secondary. It just uses a bunch of materials, like I said, some poplar, some oak. The spark gap's very crude. It's got 2700 picofarad on it. It's got two 820 Z5Us, and then it's got a 1200 picofarad N4700 that I'm a little leery about. But the good thing is it'll support probably about 6 more of these on top of it. So that's what the termination looks like on the top. It's incredibly strong. There's no way it could possibly ever break out of there. So the rope was actually just put on there for a trim ring. So I needed a way to shim this secondary here to make sure that it stayed relatively square. And I wanted to do that in a way that was non-abrasive to the secondary. So I just used probably what would be considered polyethylene, polypropylene maybe. Not sure, but I just used the pieces of rope as shims to shim that secondary. And in order to get the secondary out, you actually have to cut two pieces of that rope out to pull the secondary out to get enough clearance. Because the bottom diameter of the secondary is larger than the outside diameter is up here on top. Now the rope on top that I said was just a trim ring was because of this awful invention here. I had this on it, and this dropped the resonant frequency by 60 kilohertz, believe it or not, with the amount of capacitance. So that piece of rope was actually a trim ring to cover up this edge. So as I'm absolutely gagging of ozone, I guess I didn't refer to it as the covi-coil for nothing, because the air is definitely getting a cleansing, and unfortunately it's not doing a good job on the lungs. So that's really all I can say about that. So you know, what do I think here on this? I don't know. Not that anyone asked me, but you know, it's a 28 watt transformer. I think that's the biggest thing to think about. You know, is it 2-foot long arcs or 18-inch long arcs? Like I first built? No. But you know, it is what it is. Do I think it's tuned? Well, I don't know that I ever refer to anything as being absolutely tuned. Do I think it's extremely close? Yes. But you know what they say about close. It only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And that's very true on a Tesla coil. being off a little bit can make a pretty significant difference. But all in all, I'm pretty happy. The spark gap has some issues. I'm not an expert, so I'm not sure what to make of it. But I may keep going at it. So I appreciate you watching. Have yourself a nice day.